And now, live from the Steele Twins recording studio in beautiful Traverse City, Michigan, and Casa de Fraytown in Taylor, Michigan, here are your hosts for our pre-combine episode of the Outside Blitz, the fabulous Scotty Fraytown and the Cannonball, Alex Steele.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Outside Blitz, a doubleheader, if you will. I mean, we just had an episode this past Saturday. We're back today, the pre-combine episode going on. Hey, look, the NFL Combine right around the corner. We're just a couple days away. Alex, you, myself, your brother, Steele Twins, Andy, we're going to be going down there in Indianapolis. We're going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium live for the second year in a row. Very excited about it. It's an annual trip. It's a tradition here on this podcast, so we've got a lot going on. But because of the fact that we won't be here this weekend, obviously, we've got to go and give you guys some weekly content. So we're going to do just that with an additional, it's basically like a double header where you get a double swift kick in the nuts of the Outside Blitz. Yeah, Alex, I mean, fired up for the Combine, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a double dose of trouble. We're everywhere now. We are here. We're here on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Kick on 2 different channels. So, yeah, if you love yourself some Outside Blitz, we're not too hard to find. And then, obviously, before the Combine starts, obviously, we will be live on Odyssey, SoundCloud, Spotify, you name it. But today we have a very special episode. We're going to go ahead and the package Andrew Steele with the obligatory Bart Scott meme. Can't wait.
Can't wait. Yeah, that's it. Can't wait, baby.
Yeah, we got a big slate on tap this week, do we not?
Yes, we do. We got a lot going on. I'm super excited. Indianapolis is a great town. We went down there last year, and I knew it was going to be good. We knew it was going to be a fun time. I didn't anticipate it being as fun as it was, and what an experience it turned out to be. We had such a great time last year, such a great time. We went to so many breweries, and we got to go into the stadium. We got to meet so many great people. We've talked about the family of Kane Medrano ad nauseum. They're just wonderful people. We got to meet, James Hunt, the father of Jalix Hunt, a wonderful man. We had such a good time meeting these folks. Just amazing people. The people that were in the crowd, it was a very, dare I say it, almost a family atmosphere. It was just so interesting. These people that we didn't even know. We were just hanging out with them, having a good time, and we just hope those good times continue to roll. Indianapolis is a great place, and I really hope, I do, that they never move the Combine from Indianapolis. I really hope they don't,
dear Lord,
because
baby Jesus.
You're right. It's such a perfect place for it. It's such a central location. And the only other way I could see them moving the Combine at all would be if, let's say, the Bears do go through with that new stadium. We were talking about it this past Saturday, and they do wind up going to Hammond, Indiana. And I could see a brand new stadium, the NFL Combine at the brand new stadium. I could see something like that going on. But Lucas Oil Stadium and the NFL Combine, it's like a staple, right? Mm-hmm. And we had such a good time. Indianapolis is such a walkable town. Everybody over there is really cool. Just they call it Midwestern nice. That's kind of what they
that's
are.
Right. Yeah, it's like peas and carrots. It's chicken and waffles. It's peanut butter and jelly. They just go together.
Yeah, it's just a nice place to go, and I just really hope that it never moves away from Lucas Oil Stadium. But man, we've got some stuff going on. The Combine, we're going to be talking about some of our guys to watch at the NFL Combine. So we're going to be talking about some of those. But we've got some news around the league, Alex. I mean, some stuff happened. I mean, it was 2 days and some stuff happened.
Yeah, you talk about the possible move for the Bears, and I don't know if you guys talked about this in the last episode. I didn't get a chance to listen to it because I was too busy. I was too busy soaking up the sun in Gulf Shores, Alabama last week, taking some much needed R&R. But I heard through the grapevine that the Chicago Bears are indeed going to be moving to Hammond, Indiana. Is that correct?
Well, as it currently stands, and it's not 1,000% like it's not 100% like yes, it's happening. But here's what's going on. So Hammond, Indiana, the Indiana has gone through this process of getting a lot of approvals for a stadium out there in Hammond, and it's considered the Chicagoland area is what it's considered. So. And in the meantime, in Illinois, they were going through the process of trying to get some revenue for a new stadium for the Chicago Bears, and their talks stalled out. So it's a lot of questions about, like, what in the hell are we doing here? The Bears and the way the Bears are kind of going to get away with still being the Chicago Bears is because Hammond is a part of the Chicagoland area is what they call it. So they're going to get away with still calling themselves the Chicago Bears. Right. Just kind of like the New York Jets and the New York Giants play in MetLife, but it's in New Jersey, so it's getting a little out of hand. And I already hated the idea of MetLife Stadium being over there in New Jersey anyway, but now we're going to see something like that across state lines.
And of course, if they go completely through with this, will they continue to go with a domed stadium? That's going to be a double whammy because what people have for years, for decades have been, stalwart fans sitting out in the freezing cold and the tundra there. Yeah. And, Chicago is one of those cities where it's really hard to play football. In that weather, teams that are more accustomed to warmer weather and indoor stadiums have challenges. So now you're going to take that advantage away by putting in a domed stadium. I mean, I think Boots put it best. I mean, we have one of our favorite words here when it comes to that, and I'll let you say that.
Yeah, it's glamping.
Glamping.
Yeah, glamping. And listen, I agree with you. I don't think they should get away from open top stadiums out there when it comes to Chicago, but they're on the cusp of moving to a dome stadium, and I just think it's silly as hell. I understand, the NFL in a lot of ways has gone the way of domes and the way of indoor stadiums. I get it, and for some teams, it's always been that way. For there's a lot of teams, Detroit, for example. Indoors, it's been, either the Silver Dome or it's been Ford Field. The Vikings, it was either the Metrodome or now it's, US Bank Stadium. Yeah, and then there's those teams that have always had outdoor stadiums. And I, as much of a hard time as we give the Buffalo Bills because the snow obviously causes such a ruckus for them. For the Bills, I mean, at least they've embraced it. With their new stadium, they're still doing open top, and we busted their balls over it. But at the same time, I mean, at least they're gutsy enough to just say, hey, this is who we are. Mm-hmm. And I'm not mad at that. That is who the Buffalo Bills are. But there are teams out there that have always had open tops, whether it's Tampa or Miami or Baltimore or Seattle, Kansas City. And Kansas City might be moving into a dome stadium too, which I'll be baffled by. That's just a crazy thing to think about. But, there's teams out there that have always gone with the open top stadium. But even in some of the warm states, they're starting to go with the closed top concept. Dallas, Houston's got a closed top stadium, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of places. Arizona's got the retractable out there. There are teams out there that are still doing that. Atlanta, New Orleans, a lot of those southern states have gone to the domes and the closed top stadiums. So, it's something to keep an eye on. But, to the credit of places like Cincinnati and Cleveland and Tennessee and Seattle and San Francisco, they've gone and really I like the Rams concept too, because they've got like this partially open top concept where it's like, indoor outdoor in a way. It's still technically domed, but it's outdoor enough to the point where it's not like completely closed in. So
you got to take advantage of that LA sun, baby. That's SoCal sun.
The Rams and the Chargers both use that stadium, so. It all that kind of works out for them, but even the Raiders, when they went to Vegas, they put that giant Roomba out there, and they've got that closed top. So, but we could see the Bears, or as I will refer to them, the Hammond Grizzlies, coming very soon. But that's kind of what we're going to see coming.
That's in our back pocket, kids. Pay attention.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Hammond Grizzlies. I'm going to call them that. I'm going to stop calling them the Chicago Bears. They won't be the Bears anymore. But we've got some news that went on around the league here. And the biggest one comes today. The most recent one anyway. Cowboys are making some moves, man. The Cowboys, first, they intend to franchise tag wide receiver George Pickens. He's going to make anywhere from $28 to $28.8 million per year against the cap. This is an interesting situation because when it comes to George Pickens, he's got a situation where he's possibly looking at a trade, but he was also in a spot where, if you think about it, he was the best receiver on that team last year. He outperformed CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb got hurt last year, and now the Cowboys have franchise tagged him. I doubt the Cowboys are going to pay him $28 million. I mean, even though George Pickens is kind of worth it, I don't think they have the ability and the cap space to do this. I mean, this is kind of a crazy spot for them to be in, is it not?
I mean, well, here's how they got into this crazy spot. If you recall, I mean, and being tagged as a franchise wide receiver, that there's some benefit to that, I'm sure. But we always said, he had an attitude problem in Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh decided to just send him out the door to Dallas, and that's how we got into this situation. But funny thing is, he outperformed CeeDee Lamb last year, as I'm sure everyone's aware in previous episodes. So the question must be asked: is George Pickens going to demand a bag, after this franchise tag wears off, or is he just going to seek a trade? Because listen, George Pickens to me sounds like the kind of wide receiver that wants to play for a winner. Who doesn't? But in this context, it sounds more like George Pickens is just biding his time, and maybe he'll deal with the franchise tag, maybe he'll request a trade halfway through the season, unless the Cowboys can come to some sort of agreement to make him the true number one receiver.
Well, here's the thing, so this could be a tag and trade situation. We could see that getting ready to come. Good friend of the show, Ray Kowicki, says Pickens is a bum. Listen, I don't think George Pickens is a bum. I mean, 1,000-yard receiver on the regular, but in this situation, the thing about Pickens, look, whether you like his attitude or you don't, that's the big thing about George Pickens. Most people just don't like his attitude. He's a damn good receiver. I think this is going to be a tag and trade situation, but with the Cowboys right now, it's not like they can afford him. You're looking at a situation where you are $24 million in the negative here, cap-wise. And I understand a lot of people say the cap is a lie, blah, blah. Well, the cap isn't a lie, but it can be manipulated, right? Yep. And Ray Kowicki also says he's a locker room cancer, and I agree with that. I agree he's a locker room cancer, because he's got that attitude. He had that attitude in Pittsburgh. He had the attitude when he came to Dallas. He's just one of those diva receivers that we've seen, and one of those diva players. I agree with that. But when I look at the Dallas Cowboys and their current situation, if they were smart, they would take a look at the cap number for a few of these guys, in particular Dak Prescott, who you mentioned. And here, let's take a look at this. His cap number for this year is $74 million for him. If you restructure him, you can save yourself $30 million on the cap, and you can, save that room, and you can still afford to have George Pickens. But the Cowboys still have to sign their draft class this year. Yep. They still have to take a look at what's going on in free agency. You don't know what's going to happen in free agency frenzy at March 11th. That's a huge thing too. So, and the Cowboys have holes on this team to fill. So do you trade George Pickens? And I think, that's what's going to go on. Ray says Hawks are going back to back. Everyone can go home. Keep dreaming. That's all right. I understand wishful thinking. Last time you guys tried to go back to back, you threw a pick in the end zone. So I digress. Should have run Marshawn. But hey, I understand your your rah-rah stuff. But anyway.
So the other question has to be, the supplemental question has to be asked. Do you trade George Pickens? And if so, what do you ask for him? Because
I think he's a first-round pick, easy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
First-round pick, easy.
Yeah. So what are you thinking? Like teens, maybe the early 20s? Or do you dare say trade for a top 10 pick?
Well, if you're going to trade George Pickens, you're going to end up getting a first rounder for sure. You know, if the Stephon Diggs trade was any indicator, you know, when the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills is a very similar situation, right?
Right.
I think the trade market is sort of set in that situation where it might be 2 1s, you know, back-to-back years. It might be a situation where you get a 1 and a 3. You know, I think the Vikings got a 1 and a 3. The market is sort of different now. It's a passing league compared to what it used to be. So we might see, you know, a 1 and a 2, maybe 2 1s, you know, in a row. You never know. Might be a 1 and a star player. You know, if the Cowboys want to get themselves a linebacker and an edge rusher out of this situation, they probably can. And then you get that extra first rounder so you can go up, boom, and you can go out and fix that edge rushing position, which as a pass rushing team, they were absolutely abysmal last year. They were one of the worst pass rushing teams in all of football.
Well,
so I think that's worth noting.
In their defense, I mean, their defense was also completely splintered. You know, a lot of their defensive players, you know, had, you know, skipped town, and yet others got injured. So the Dallas Cowboys did not have a defense last year, and they've always been known to have stalwart defenses.
Yep. Well, dead last in defense last year. They were the worst defense in football. You know, and it's, you knew it was going downhill as soon as they traded Micah Parsons away.
Oh, but yes.
They've got to fix the defense. They did the right thing in getting some of the defensive tackles. They fixed the interior, but that pass rush was not there. And as John Gruden always says, it's all about that pass rush. So, you know, that's kind of what we get to.
And it doesn't help that they traded away Trayvon Diggs too. So I mean, you have no corners. You have no corners. You don't have a pass rusher. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence, you know, went to Seattle and won a Super Bowl with them. So you know, he was a beast when he was in Dallas. So hey, Jerry. Pro tip, you know, once you take your medication and your applesauce, maybe you need to talk to your GM about possibly drafting some defensive pieces.
Well, Jerry is the GM. That's right. That's the problem. He needs to have a serious conversation with himself. But they did make what I thought was a really good move here. A guy who and for what he did this last season and surprised a lot of us. He didn't surprise Boots so much, but he surprised you and I. Is Javonte Williams.
Yes.
He gets signed to a 3-year, $24 million contract, $8 million per year. Look, that's a good signing for a guy who went out and had himself a really, really good showing this last year. Broke 1,000. He was a touchdown machine. He was just a stud. He didn't get hurt right until the end of the season. He got hurt in like the last week of the year. But Javonte had himself a really solid season that we didn't really expect. You and I in particular. Mm-hmm. Boots was like, this guy's still got it. He's still the man. And man, he was right. And getting him for $8 million a year, I think is a really good price for a guy who just came off of his best season. It looked really good in Schottenheimer's offense. You really got to love what they were doing with him.
Absolutely. You know, and the primary reason I was so surprised with Javonte Williams' performance last year was because of his previous year with Denver. You know, when he was with the Denver Broncos, he never really made any big splashes. You know,
non-existent.
He was non-existent in the backfield.
Yep.
You know, and that could be because at the time Denver was a pass-first offense, and you know probably still is, and you know Sean Payton hasn't really been known for running the ball all that much. So now you get him to a team that you know has a good balance between the run and the pass game, and allows Javonte Williams to unlock himself. You know, the Cowboys unlocked him last year. And you know, so they should hang on to him, you know, and see if he can make a repeat performance.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 years on that deal, and it'll take him right up until he's, I believe, 30 years old. I think he's 27 this upcoming season. So I mean, I like Javonte Williams. I just didn't, and I liked him when he first came out, but the health was always the concern. We just never knew whether or not he was going to be a healthy running back. He turns out to be as healthy as we've seen him in his entire career. It's always, if it wasn't an ACL, it was a shoulder. If it wasn't a shoulder, it was a ankle. If it wasn't an ankle, it was a foot. If it wasn't that, he had a concussion.
And what are the two main tenets that we preach here at the Outside Blitz? Availability and reliability. And,
exactly.
And I'm tempted to add consistency to that list too, because and make no mistake about it, Javonte Williams was very consistent last year.
Yes, he was. He was one of the best running backs in football, top 10 last year, this past season. So also another guy that was kind of interesting. This is an interesting tag, and I don't know if I like it, but the Falcons, they intend to use the franchise tag on tight end Kyle Pitts. He'll make anywhere between $16 to $16.3 million on the tag.
Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts, here's the thing. I remember him coming out of college, and he was very hyped. Very, very, very hyped about, he's going to be the best tight end. He's such an athlete, and he's going to be, he was the only other time I really saw a tight end getting hyped this much coming out of college was like Brock Bowers. This is probably the first time in a long time, that Kyle Pitts before that was the first time in a long time I'd seen a tight end getting hyped that much coming out of college.
Yeah.
And now he comes out of college. He got drafted. I think it was 8th overall. He got drafted. I mean, it was a big deal. People were like, Kyle Pitts. I mean, I heard this kid was going to be incredible, and he was so hit or miss. It's hot and not. He'll go out there and one game he'll catch 6 passes for 90 yards, and then the next game he gets 1 for 10. And you never knew which Kyle Pitts you were really going to get. And now Kyle Pitts, he's getting signed to a $16 million a year deal basically for 1 year because of the franchise tag. I don't think he's worth that. And I think last year he had like 2 really good games, one of which was a 3-touchdown performance. But beyond that, Kyle Pitts, not really. He hasn't lived up to the hype of a number 8 overall pick. I don't buy it. I don't think this is a smart move by the Falcons.
Yeah, I don't. I have mixed feelings as well. And the question that I have is, what is the situation with it? Is it because of that performance he had against the Rams? Because I will tell you that with the Rams, I don't know what team it was. I just remember that it was round 1 of the playoffs on our fantasy team. And Kyle Pitts went absolutely crazy. And it's like the one time he decides to blow up is the one time I don't need him to blow up. You're welcome, Justin.
The guy hadn't done anything. He hasn't done anything his entire career, at least not to get $16 million a year. You want to pay the guy 8, 9. I can get behind that. But 16, that's like near top tight end money. Right now, there are tight ends out there getting 18, 19, 20, and he's going to be getting 16. He's going to be right behind him on a franchise tag.
It doesn't. No, make it make sense, because I'm having trouble following that.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It was one of the tags I just really didn't like in this situation. Also, let's go ahead and talk about the Chiefs. They made a move. They go out and release veteran defensive end Mike Dana. Mike Dana has been a stalwart for them. He's been with them, if I'm not mistaken, for about 9 seasons, if I'm not wrong. He says they saved $9 million against the cap. They gave a 2.167 dead cap hit. So from a cap perspective, it makes sense, especially with the Chiefs. They're trying to save some cap space. They restructured Patrick Mahomes over the weekend, so they made sure that Mahomes they saved $47 million, if I'm not mistaken, against the cap by restructuring him. They get rid of Michael Dana. That saves $9 million. So the Chiefs are making cap space for a reason. Who knows why? Who knows what kind of move? We've seen the Chiefs do some crazy stuff where they start moving some money around, and next thing you know, big names are coming in. and they're getting some guys there to rebuild this team. And that finish this last year, that 6-10 finish, was not very Chiefs-like. I'll just say that much. So people are not thrilled with the Kansas City Chiefs, but now they're freeing up cap space right now. This Mike Dana move, for a guy who's been a stalwart for them, who's been a really good defensive end for them, a good compliment to Chris Jones. This is one of those times where it makes you wonder what they're going to do at that defensive end position, if they're going to be drafting a new edge rusher out there, if they're going to find one in the latter rounds. Alex, what do you think?
I think it's this is the Chiefs playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers, and I'm not saying that in a like, oh, that's 5D chess. No, well, yeah, let's pump the brakes. I mean, we've always said that the Kansas City Chiefs have been very savvy. Their GMs is one of the savviest in football. That's why they've been able to stay ahead of the curve. They know they have a problem with Patrick Mahomes. They know they have, the ACL tear to deal with and to recover from. And Boots has adamantly stated on this show that if Kansas City wants to have any long-term success, do not start Patrick Mahomes next year. You let him rest. You get him nice and fresh. And then, you also have to wonder, is Travis Kelce done with the NFL? Is he going to walk out the door? Because if he doesn't have his quarterback thrown to him, that might be some more cap space they might be able to free up. I don't know if he still has money on his deal, his most recent deal. But, I mean, there are a couple of places where I think another player that I think everybody should keep their eye on is Chris Jones. Their standout defensive tackle. That guy is a space eater and one of the nastiest defensive players in the league. So, keep an eye on him. But
yeah, and keep an eye on his cap number too. He's got a $44 million cap number moving into this year. If you restructure him, you're set to save $22 million. As it currently stands, the Chiefs, by the way, they're in the negative by about $3.2 million. So one restructure and they're right back in this thing. They're able to sign their rookie class. I think you could probably see either Chris Jones or Trey Smith getting restructured. Maybe Creed Humphrey. Creed Humphrey is also due $18 million this year. You restructure him, you can save $8 million. Same with George Karlaftis, who recently just got signed to an extension this last year. If you recall, if you restructure him, you can save $7 million. So they have options, to move some money around and make moves in order to create cap space, not just for the draft and to sign your draft class, but also for free agency if they need to. But they're going to have to do something. And you mentioned Chris Jones saving $22 million in cap space right off the rip just by a restructure here. It creates a situation where, yes, you can sign your draft class. And also, yes, you'll have some wiggle room for free agency. That one move would probably make this team it wouldn't be a rebuild. They would be in reload, where they were able to bring in some new players, some fresh blood on cheaper contracts, and get this thing back to where it needs to be and has been over the last several years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great word, reload, because we hear the word rebuild thrown around like it's paper mache. But in this case, it is what this is. It's a reload, lock in, reset, just kind of get your bearings. Maybe you don't make huge waves next year, although we've seen the Patriots go from damn near worst to damn near first in a single year, thanks to Mike Vrabel and his staff. So it's possible. We've seen it happen. But if I was a betting man, I would probably say that, the days of dominance of the Kansas City Chiefs have been put on hold. They're not done, but they've been put on hold.
Yeah, it's very much like you're on the back end here of that Chiefs dynasty that was going on for a while. I think that's about where we're at. It's the back nine here, and they're getting tired awfully quick. The golf cart's starting to run out of battery power. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. In the meantime, I
love the fact that you're putting in golf references because it is that season.
Yeah, we're getting there. And also, we've got some moves going on with the Chargers around that division as well. The Chargers center Bradley Bozeman has announced his retirement after 8 seasons. He was a 6th-round pick by the Ravens back in 2018. He played for the Ravens, Panthers, and the Chargers. Had himself a decent career, especially for a 6th-round pick, picked up back in 2018. So Bradley Bozeman gone for the Chargers. The Chargers might be in the market and likely will be in the market in the draft for a center. And luckily for them, there's some really good centers that are going to be coming out in this draft. We're going to be taking a look at some of these guys when the NFL Combine happens this weekend, when we're down there in Indianapolis. So we'll be watching some of these interior offensive linemen. We went over our interior offensive linemen. There's some guys out there that are going to be worth picking up and worth looking at in the 2nd round, 3rd round. Guys like Pat Coogan, guys like Jennings Dunker, guys like Jake Slaughter. These guys are going to be, and those 3 guys in particular, they can play anywhere on the interior. They're very good. And these guys are going to be really unsung heroes of this draft.
Yep.
And I really think that this is, believe it or not, like there's always like a position group that is very strong in different draft classes. Mm-hmm. There's, some years there's a really strong quarterback class, or there's a really strong running back class. Well, it's not really a strong quarterback class, and it's not really a strong running back class
this year.
It's not this year, and it's really not. It's a good receiver class, but it's not the strongest receiver class that we've ever seen. We got some studs out there, Mekhi Lemon and so on and so forth. So we've got some good guys out there, but it's a decent tight end class. But then, like, I'm thinking about, like, what's the strongest part of this class? It may very well be the interior offensive linemen. I'm looking at some of these interior guys, and I'm going, holy shit, these guys are incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of the more underrated position plays. Not position plays, but, the one of the more underrated position groups in football.
Yes.
Nobody really, talks. I mean, us nerds talk about them all the time, but but for the casual football fan just sitting on Sunday drinking the beer and watching their team, you don't really see, you don't see the center or the tackles or the guards, make those running lanes. You just watch the running back plow through and make that cut to get out to the field, or you see that pretty dime that gets dropped and the receiver, quote unquote, mosses somebody. And that is fun to see, but that's not possible without a stout offensive line, and we've seen the negative part of that. If you take a look at Tennessee last year, they drafted Cam Ward, #1 overall, and he never really got any traction, the poor guy, because he was getting the stuffing knocked out of him, because he did not have a stalwart offensive line to protect him. And it's the same problem with Bryce Young. Bryce Young also, was drafted #1 overall by Carolina, but the Panthers organization did Bryce Young absolutely no favors by not, setting up an offensive line to protect him. So, you sit there and think about it.
This is my worry. This is my worry when we talk about, the draft and these guys getting ready to come out, and this is my worry about a guy like Fernando Mendoza coming out #1 overall, and he's getting ready to go to the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And it's Colton Miller and a handful of nobodies there on that line, and that's it. Yeah. I mean, there is nothing that it is, and you see this all the time in this league. I said it on several episodes as going into this offseason, and when we talk about Mendoza, we've been saying this for years. This is a Tylerism here. Mm-hmm. That's how old this quote is. But you bought the Ferrari, but you didn't put it in the garage.
Yep.
And we hear that all the time, and we say that all the time on this show, and that's exactly what it is. These guys, they buy the Ferrari and then they don't put it in the garage. They buy the big time quarterback in the first round, and they wonder why he gets the hell beat out of them. And this is what we're going to see, in a lot of these situations. Thankfully for some of these teams that are going out into these middle rounds and have these middle round picks, or have stocked up on 2nd and 3rd round picks, there are going to be guys out there, especially on the interior, that they're going to be able to pick up. And because interior offensive lineman isn't considered by and far a premium position per se. A center or a guard isn't a premium position. And okay, I get it, what it's considered. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's the offensive tackle is the premium position. Well, I get that. You want to protect your quarterback's blind side, whatever the case may be, especially left tackles. But come on, we see interior pressure all the time, collapsing pockets. We saw it. I mean, take it, Vikings, Lions, the interior pressure, collapsing pockets on Jared Goff. We saw that constantly. You see what happens when you don't have a viable center and viable guards. You just see those pockets collapse. It doesn't matter. You still have to have 5 good players on that line. I believe that in the second and third and fourth round, you're going to see a run on interior offensive linemen in this draft. And there's going to be some really good ones and some steals that people can get on day 3. So I hope everybody's excited. I'm going to be watching interior offensive linemen in this draft. That's what I'm going to be watching. That's going to, believe it or not, the last day of the draft, the one day, and you and I have been, or the combine rather, that you and I, we went there last year and we sat there on day 4 and it was like no man's land. It was like there was a nobody was there. There was very few people in the crowd watching these linemen. Look, lineman day is very important.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be one of the best days for, it's not the sexy position, but it's going to be one of those days where you're going to want to be there to see these guys.
Yep, it's a utility position, and you're absolutely right. It's not a sexy position. It's not a flashy position, but it's an effective position if done effectively. I know it's kind of a double speak there, but that's how we saw Gray Zabel, come into his own, and look where he is now. Gray Zabel is a Super Bowl champion. We saw Robbie Outs try out as a tight end, and he got drafted by Seattle. What's he doing now? He's wearing a ring, so. Congratulations. You see that. You see guys during these, especially during the combine, but you see guys during these workouts, especially on day 4, and you get an idea of like, hey, there's some really good talent out here, some really good offensive linemen. Take a look at Ariante Ursary. Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle for the Houston Texans out of the University of Minnesota. And this was a guy that Boots was really big on. Ariante Ursary took over the offensive tackle position from Laramie Tunsil. I mean, beat him out and took that position over. I mean, Ursary wasn't bad this year. Wasn't great, but wasn't bad. It's one of those things where you can find gems and you can find diamonds in the rough on day 3 of the draft. And that's going to be a big deal, especially in this class. People need to pay attention because this draft class right here, it's a top-notch interior offensive line class, and people need to see it. People need to look and go, hey, wow, wait a minute. There's some good freaking players out here for guards and centers that are going to get picked up and are going to be studs for the long term for some of these teams. So people need to keep an eye on that. But we've got other news around the league. Speaking of offensive linemen, the Lions, they finalized their coaching staff. They named former offensive tackle Dan Skipper as an offensive assistant. So Skipper, he gets released by the Lions as an offensive lineman, and then he gets picked right back up as a part of their coaching staff. So he's back in town. I mean, he's one. I like to call Dan Skipper one of those great guys of Detroit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's Detroit hiring from within. It's keeping everything in the family. We've referred to it as the hippie drum circle, but for all of its foibles and all of its for all of its nuances, there can be some advantages to having a positive culture in a football team. It's not a bad thing. Now, is it going to win you a Super Bowl? Jury's out. But at the same time, this is a good hire because again, we're seeing more players, former players taking coaching positions, whether it's a head coaching position or wide receivers coach, quarterback coach, These people have played the game. They know what they're seeing, and they can pass that knowledge on to the players.
Yep, and he knows your scheme. That's the big thing. He's been there. He already knows what Dan Campbell wants to do. He's aware of what it takes to not only be on that offensive line, but he's aware of the fact that, okay, this is how we're gonna play Detroit Lions football. This is how we're gonna run the ball. We're gonna open up those running lanes for Jahmyr Gibbs. We're gonna get him outside. He knows all of the nuances. So I mean, I think this is a smart hire. He's a player, like you said, he's a player that knows the game, knows what the Lions are doing. This is a good hire from within, and you don't see it often, but we're seeing it a little more regularly now in the last couple of years. We saw it again. This is another one with the Rams. So over the weekend, Robert Woods, the wide receiver for the Rams, retired.
Bob Woods.
And then he goes and he gets picked up by the Rams as the assistant receivers coach on their staff. So we get another one going back to his former team, Robert Woods. Look, USC's all-time leading receiver. This guy he was an awesome player. He was very consistent. Didn't do so well with the Bills, but when he went to the Rams, he turned his career around and he was really good for them for a number of years. He was the kind of guy where it's like, hey, in fantasy football, you're starting this guy every week. He is a really good receiver, and now he takes on a coaching role, assistant receivers coach. I think this is a good hire for the Rams.
Absolutely. Again, the Rams are probably another team that, is very savvy at the GM position, very savvy in the coaching position. Sean McVay is has quickly proven to be one of the better head coaches in the league. And he definitely has, his youth kind of helps with that because he can build his knowledge and pass that on for years and years. I mean, I wouldn't call him quite like a genius like a Mike Tomlin yet, because that's just a steel trap in a different grade. But you see that why the Rams are consistently contenders in the NFC West, because of the way that they handle their staff, the way that they handle their players. And, even when they get a couple of bad apples, I mean, even Baker Mayfield didn't work out too well, but then, obviously he went to Tampa, but that's a different story. But they know how to handle their players and get them in a position to be fairly successful.
Sean McVay has a way of moving his offensive systems around to suit his players. He's very good at that. I think offensively, he's one of the better head coaches in football. Defensively, he is very adept at finding good defensive coordinators and guys that'll handle his defense. He comes from that Shanahan tree, and it's worked out well for him. So, the Rams, I think this is a smart move. They go out and get Robert Woods in the door, a guy that knows the game. This is a smart play for them. Also, the former Commanders assistant head coach and passing game coordinator, Brian Johnson, has joined the Rams as a senior offensive assistant. So, they get another guy in here that I think is a really good pickup for them as a senior offensive assistant. Think about the passing game with the Commanders and how well they did with a brand new quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and how they made him successful as a rookie. And Jaden Daniels, obviously, he had a lot of built-in tools, right? He's number 2 overall pick. But if you think about it, this is a smart move. You get a guy that was able to help Jaden Daniels be as successful as he was. So I like that a lot. I think Jaden Daniels benefited from this guy, and this is going to be no different. Brian Johnson's going to be good for the Rams. Yep. Also, we had the Patriots. They made an interesting release, one that kind of makes me a little sad. Antonio Gibson, he gets released by the Patriots after a failed physical. Gibson is one of those guys that's been like, he shows up randomly. Yep. Every now and then. It's just like, oh, hey, it's like an Antonio Gibson sighting. He pops up in special teams constantly for like every team he's with. He's always a special teams guy. And then if you look at what Antonio Gibson did, like, for example, when he was with the Commanders, he would just pop up on the stat sheet one day and go off for 120 yards. And it's like, where did this come from? And then he would just disappear into obscurity again. You'd be like, oh, okay, he's just back into the void.
He's kind of like Tyreek Hill. No, not Tyreek Hill. Tyler Lockett. I apologize for that. But no, Tyler Lockett, when he was at Seattle, was exactly the same way. He would easily be the number 3 receiver. And like one couple of games he would do jack squat, and then look, there he goes for 115 yards and 10 catches. So Antonio Gibson's been in the league for a long time too. So that's doubly sad seeing him go.
Yeah, he's been around for a minute. The thing about Antonio Gibson is he's always had an injury bug. He's always been dealing on and off with the injury issues, and he tore his ACL not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken. He's always, over the last couple of years in particular, he's been dealing with some injuries. So he winds up, I think a lot of the injury issues is probably why he failed his physical. I'm assuming, but we'll see how that goes. Also, let's talk about the Vegas Raiders. Defensive end Max Crosby and the Raiders have had conversations about his future, but the fences would need to be mended for him to remain in Vegas there, per the NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero. He reported that on Good Morning Football. Pelissero added that Crosby's representatives and the Raiders can be expected to meet this week at the Combine, although there's also an opportunity for the Raiders to speak with other teams in attendance about what a trade would look like if Vegas and Crosby ultimately decide that that's the best course of action. Look, Max Crosby, the Raiders need to trade him. Mm-hmm. I don't understand at this stage. Like, the Raiders have to take a step back and think to themselves, and they have to be honest with themselves. Is this the moment that you have this great defensive player that's going to make you a Super Bowl champion?
Right.
And
do you still have that in him? No. And I agree. No. The answer is no.
I think they have a Super Bowl champion, but I think Max Crosby anywhere else could be just about anywhere else could be a Super Bowl champion.
Hey, Brad, get on the phone. Hello.
Is he right? But is he gonna do it in Vegas? No, not now. Vegas is about, if I was a betting man, and I understand rebuilds in this league have gotten very, very have
been variable,
quick, right? Yeah, they've been very quick, and especially in recent memory. I mean, we saw what happened with the Detroit Lions. They 2 years and boom, they were in everybody's face. I think that this is a situation where if you're the Raiders, you have to embrace the rebuild. You are not in any position. Does Max Crosby put you in any position to win a Super Bowl? No, not right now. Not as you're currently constructed. And I think it would just behoove them to say, hey, let's trade away Max Crosby, get our 2 first-rounders. If a team's willing to give up the star player that they want or the really good playmaker, okay, cool. But you take the 2 first-rounders, you take the first-rounder you have, and then you go into the drafts and you make your moves. 4 first-round picks in 2 years changes a lot for a football team. It just changes a lot. This is a really big opportunity for them. I think it would be very smart for the Raiders to trade away Max and go and get the first-rounders and rebuild that team. Just go fix it. And you can think about that. You can not only get 2 new offensive tackles, or at least 1 offensive tackle, but then you can get receivers that you need desperately. You have a running back. You're going to pick up Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall, probably. And then you have your 2nd and 3rd round picks where you can go out and get interior offensive linemen. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Raiders to go out and just make this move and think about the future of their football team. I think they're being stubborn. I think they're honestly just out here having a dick measuring contest with Max Crosby. It makes no sense. Trade the man. Trade the man.
Yeah, and we've said on this podcast that the Raiders organization isn't really up to snuff. It definitely isn't one of the better organizations in the league. I mean, Al Davis, for all of his successes with John Madden and in the early days, he was just kind of an old man. May he rest in peace, obviously. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Raiders cannot afford to be stubborn with this man. They have talent, and they have draft capital that they can acquire from a decent trade. And you mentioned that Max Crosby and the Raiders are going to be at the combine. I mean, wouldn't it be something if we were just hanging out at one of these restaurants and we saw Max Crosby sitting across the room and we decided to snag in quote unquote exclusive interview? I mean, yeah, I'm just speaking it into existence.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We gotta go to St. Elmo's. I think that's where a lot of them hang out, honestly. But it's going to be one of those times where we're going to have an opportunity to be out there and maybe see some crazy stuff go on, some crazy stuff happening. Mm-hmm.
But to finish this part of the conversation, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Raiders, they're in a position where they can rebuild their team. They can rebuild their team, and they can rebuild it around Fernando Mendoza.
Exactly.
You have Geno Smith start one more year. Okay, first of all, I don't know if he's still with the team. As far as I know, he still is. So if you keep Geno Smith on for one more year, have Fernando Mendoza sit behind him and learn as much as he can. Because, when you get to that next level, when you have all that draft capital and you spend it on an offensive line, then you're going to start seeing results. If the Raiders were smart, this is what they would do. Yeah,
you build around your franchise quarterback. That's what they need to do. That's what they've needed to do for a while. You build around your franchise quarterback, and you don't just go out and pick. Look, I understand why they picked up Geno Smith, because they had Pete Carroll there, and they really wanted to have that that
Seahawks magic again.
Yeah, and it wasn't there, and they didn't do him any favors either. Mm-hmm. They really didn't. We're going to go pick up this veteran quarterback, but hey, wait a minute. We're going to go ahead and not build the offensive line. I've been talking about that for a minute. Mm-hmm. We all have. And now it's like you have an opportunity.
Yep.
They have a real opportunity. Just trade him.
No, and the final question that must be asked, I've asked this of the Cleveland Browns several episodes ago. You know this. Are they smart enough? I have doubts.
I have my doubts as well. And also we got to talk about a little bit more about the Rams, by the way. Recent hire to the Rams coaching staff. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Cliff Kingsbury.
Yes.
He got hired on by the Rams. He's officially been named to a position. He's the assistant head coach.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah.
You got an offensive mind like Cliff Kingsbury, getting Sean McVay's ear. You thought Matthew Stafford blew up last year. Watch out.
Yeah.
He kind of still needs Tommy John surgery. We're going to stamp the bingo card on that. but no, seriously, this is tremendous.
Yeah, I think it's a great move, and to give him that high of a position on your coaching staff as an assistant head coach, I think that really speaks volumes to how good Cliff Kingsbury really is. And look, I think he got a bad rap over there in Arizona for a while. But we saw what he did in USC when he took Caleb Williams and turned him into a number 1 overall pick. I think we got to see what he was capable of when he did what he did with Jaden Daniels over there with the Commanders as a part of Dan Quinn's staff. I think Cliff Kingsbury should, at some point, be a head coach in this league. At some point, again.
Wasn't he a head coach before?
Yes, and you know what? He got a bad rap over there in Arizona with it.
But yes.
To me,
give him another shot. Give him another shot.
Yeah. If he goes to the right situation with the right team, the right players, he's going to wind up being a really good head coach long term that we're going to be talking about. And then
question: what about the Raiders? Why don't if the Raiders are in like limbo here and they're in like rebuild mode, if they trade Max Crosby, they get all that draft capital, they build around the franchise quarterback. Is that the time you go scoop up Cliff Kingsbury and make him your head coach?
It's possible. I mean, Clint Kubiak goes over there. I mean, we've seen Clint before, kind of struggle with certain quarterbacks and struggle with in different situations. But then we saw like this last year where Clint Kubiak turned that offense with Sam Darnold into something else. Mm-hmm. I want to see what happens with Clint Kubiak over there because, I mean, he's got a tough road ahead. Mm-hmm. He really does. And his entire coaching staff, and that general manager over there, they've got a tough road ahead to rebuilding that football team. So, I mean, but Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, to me, he's got a lot of places he can go. A lot of teams should be looking at him. He's a very capable head coach and a guy that, like I said, just got a bad rap over there in Arizona when they really weren't doing him any favors from a personnel perspective. So I want to see what he does. But if you recall, the best years of Kyler Murray came under Cliff Kingsbury. So, yep. I mean, I think that's definitely worth noting. And speaking of the Cardinals, just a little bit of sad news, some somber news, but we got to talk about it. The former Cardinals and Vikings wide receiver Rondale Moore, he's died at the age of 25 years old. He was a standout at the University of Purdue. He was drafted by the Cardinals in 2021. He was found in the garage of his property in New Albany, Indiana, with a suspected self-inflicted gunshot wound. They're kind of figuring all that out right now. But Rondale Moore was one of those receivers that he really showed a ton of promise when he was with Arizona. There was a period, I believe, in 2022 where, I mean, this guy was well on pace for 1,000 yards that year. I mean, he was a stud that season. I think it was through 7 games. He had 460 some odd yards. I mean, he was a guy that we took a look at and went, wow, this guy could be the wide receiver 1 over there in Arizona at some point. He was special. And he was a hell of a kick returner as well. Special teams guy. Just the injuries, that was the only thing that really sort of held him back was the injury bug. But I mean, when he was healthy, man, he was fast. He had good hands. He was a playmaker. Really liked Rondale Moore. Our hearts go out to the family of Rondale Moore and his teammates. Just a really sad situation. We don't like to hear shit like that. It was just awful to hear. So our hearts go out to Rondale Moore and his family and all of his teammates out there. Just a sad situation. Moving forward, let's talk about some of the stuff we've got going on with this draft situation. Alex, we've got the Legacy Bowl has come and gone. And we've got some standouts from that Legacy Bowl. I watched that bowl, man, and listen, there's some guys that really caught my eye that I went, wow, I hope we get to see these guys at the Combine. I was saying, wow, I hope we get to see a few of them. So let's jump into our Legacy Bowl standouts. Boots sent us some Legacy Bowl standouts. We got to talk about them. Let's talk about Cesar Reyes out of Howard. Boots sent his notes over. He says he's got a good anchor, a good first step. He recovers well if beaten by the initial move. Quarterback can breathe easy with him on the line. He just says he needs to get and keep his hands up sooner and active at the start of the rep. I agree with that. Cesar Reyes had himself a really, really nice Legacy Bowl. He was one guy that I was definitely watching. Played extremely well. Bryce Cage was another one out of Grambling. He says he's a raw pass rusher. He's very decisive in pursuit. He's got a high motor. He just needs to vary his pass rush technique. I agree with that. Bryce Cage was, he looked good in this game, but like I said, like Boots said, he needs to divvy it up a little bit as far as how his technique is, what kind of technique he's using. Seems like he likes to bull rush quite a bit. So we got to see if he can bring those spin moves as different hand techniques. And a guy that really stood out to both Boots and myself, Quincy Ivory out of Jackson State. He was a guy that was on my list. Boots had him as well. Good initial punch. He makes the left tackle work hard. He needs to make sure he stays on balance and in control. When it comes to Quincy Ivory, I said he had a sack in this game. He was all over the place. He's got the size and movement of an outside linebacker. He's going to be an edge in this league, probably in a 3-4. I think he would be a good stand-up edge rusher in a 3-4 system like Baltimore. I think would be a really good spot for him to wind up. He's just a fit for something like that. I really enjoyed watching Quincy Ivory doing what he was doing. And then the offensive MVP of this game, a guy I mentioned to you, Jaquan Kelly, the running back out of Winston-Salem State. He, man,
talk about obscure.
Dude, this guy was, great outside of the tackles. He had 76 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. He was named the offensive MVP of the game. I think this dude in an outside zone run scheme would just kill it. Everything I saw, he got outside the tackle on the first touchdown, and as he's going, he starts looping around in one direction, realizes where his block is coming, and cuts the opposite way and shimmy shakes to the right, and he's just off to the races for a TD. I loved what he did. Kelly made a name for himself. Michael Lunds was named the defensive MVP. He had 1.5 sacks in this game. He practically lived in the backfield during that game. He was the defensive lineman out of South Carolina State. That's a guy that I really want to look at the combine. Now let's talk about DeAndre Proctor, rather, the wide receiver out of Johnson C. Smith. He had a diving catch in this game for a touchdown. He's a big-bodied guy that really plays with good body positioning, and he can shred zone coverage. Hey, Chicago. Hey, Detroit. This is kind of the kind of guy that's like right up your alley here. He really stood out. 2 guys that popped to me, though, and they might – one of them popped to other people was Cameron Ransom. Cam Ransom out of Bethune-Cookman. He showed some excellent placement on his throws in this game, especially in the opening drive. He looked really, really good. He had 3 big-time throws. He led Team Robinson to an opening drive touchdown, and that touchdown was thrown to my favorite player in this whole game, Trey Abner, the tight end out of Alabama A&M. Dude, this guy was all over the place, Trey Abner. He had a couple of circus catches in this game, and especially in that first drive, he had one over the shoulder for a 26-yard touchdown. He had an acrobatic grab where he went over the corner, reached up, and just nabbed it out of midair. He looked explosive. He's like the kind of guy that's going to be a matchup problem at every level at the NFL level.
You know what he said?
This guy is going to be special.
You know what that guy sounds like? He sounds like he's a combination of Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce. You know, yeah. I think when I hear the skills that you've talked about here, those are the 2 names that pop up in my head. You know, because and those are some of the most prolific tight ends in the game.
Trey Abner, I mean, to me, I just watched him and I said, this guy's a playmaker. That's what he is. He is a playmaker, and he's kind of stockier, you know, the way he looked anyway. But man, he was a playmaker in this game. He had a bunch of 100-yard games this year. That's a guy to watch. I really hope we get to see him at the combine. We're going to see. We're going to be taking a look today at some of the combine invites there. I believe there was 391 guys that were invited to the combine this year. So we're gonna go down the list and see the ones we want to take a peek at, the ones we are kind of meh on, and we'll get an idea. But I think Abner is a guy that I would really love to see at the combine. I think of all the tight ends, he's going to be one. He's going to be my Robbie Outs of the year, you know, or we can check him off. Yep. So you know, that's
I love the fact that we have somebody like. Okay, so I'll have to look him up later to get his PFF stats to kind of really get some preparation on that. But you have definitely piqued my interest with this man.
Yep, and you know I want to jump in. So now that I've covered our Senior Bowl stuff, we got to jump into our tight end prospects. You know the combine around the corner. We're just a couple days away. I'm fired up about it. But the tight end prospects. Hey, bro, we're going to be talking about him right now. And my number 5 tight end prospect, and I had a little shuffling here. The more I watched, the more I liked other guys than this one, but he still is a very good tight end. He's my number 5 prospect, Jack Endries out of Texas. Bro, this guy, he's available. He's reliable. He doesn't get hurt. He's got the versatility to play anywhere on the line, the slot, outside, or even as a halfback. He's done that. Solid route runner. He often creates opportunities for his quarterback, which is something I noticed particularly in zone coverage. He's a zone coverage buster. He's a good pass blocker as well, and he's got a big-time catch radius with the capability to consistently make contested catches in traffic. The cons on him, he's not a good run blocker. A good pass blocker, terrible run blocker. He weighs in at 240 pounds without the ability to really get any bigger. I don't think his body can hold any more weight. I don't think his frame can. He doesn't really make big plays after the catch. He'll catch the ball, and that's about it. And he didn't really face any big-time opponents in college, is something I noticed about Jack Endries. I like Endries a lot. There are some things that make me wonder whether or not he's going to pop at the NFL level the way like Gunnar Helm, his former teammate, did. And near the end of the season, he really seemed like he got it, did Gunnar Helm, with Tennessee. And now that Chigo Okonkwo is going out the door, we're going to probably see Gunnar Helm pop a little bit out there in Tennessee. Jack Endries, I could see him getting drafted, probably a day 3 guy. I think he probably goes about 6th round. But if it was me and I was the Tennessee Titans GM, I'd be considering picking this guy up at that level, because at least that way he'll be paired off with Gunnar Helm, 2 very similar tight ends, good hands, could be something to look at. What say you?
Yeah, I think that's a good comp, pretty good Precus. I'm going to go ahead, look at this guy. So, he's got a 68.5 overall PFF grade, a 65.1 receiving grade, and a run block grade of 66.6. So, yeah, I mean, his grades aren't like blast off the book, but, he's got plenty of experience. He's had over 400 passing snaps.
Yes.
And if we take a look, at his trajectories, he's looking like he's going to go to Tampa Bay, 12%, Kansas City, 12%, or Washington, 12%. He had 3 touchdowns in 2025. He had 346 yards. He went 33 of 45. So that's decent. He's able to. He didn't get a whole lot of targets, it looks like, So you kind of want a tight end who knows how to handle a workload, but that's not indicative of anything. He didn't have any drops. But it's kind of easy to not have drops if you're not getting thrown the football. So there's a balance there.
We saw kind of a similar situation out of Gunnar Helm when he got drafted. It was he didn't get a ton of work over there, and a lot of it I think is team and scheme. It's University of Texas and everybody oohs and ahs because it's the Longhorns. But then you as a tight end,
more of that SEC glazing.
Yeah, but as a tight end, are you going to get a lot of work? And that becomes the question. Are you going to get a lot of work at the University of Texas? And I think we're seeing that using the tight end on the regular, that's not really something that you see at Texas.
Yeah, now if he was playing at Iowa, that's an entirely different story.
Or if he was playing where my next guy was playing, Dallin Bentley. Dallin Bentley out of Utah, who loves tight ends. Iowa always we talk about Iowa being tight end university. If there was like a one that was just kind of like him, it would be the University of Utah. Look, Dallin Bentley is one of those prototypical Utah style big boy tight ends. I mean, 6'4". He's got the above average weight. He's 264 pounds. He's above average for the position in the size category, right? Mm-hmm. He's got great hands. He had 0 drops in 2025.
Great. Yep.
Yeah. Excellent hands. He makes plays at all 3 levels of the field. He's got excellent route running prowess. He's got the ability to be a legitimate zone coverage buster. runs his routes without allowing opposing defenders to push him off his spot. And a lot of that comes with the size. And he has great jukes and head fakes to create separation, especially when he's in a mismatch against vulnerable linebackers who aren't as good in coverage. I mean, the head move, it's very Stephon Diggs. He's very agile in that respect. The cons on him, he's not as good at contested catches. He only has 1 year of production at the FBS level. He doesn't block with good leverage and hand technique, and a lot of that has to do with the height and the size. Guy gets leverage on you, gets underneath your shoulder pads, and that's problematic. And also, he's not a speedster by any stretch of the imagination. But at that size, do you need to be a speedster? I don't know.
I mean, not really.
Yeah, when you're one of those big-bodied tight ends out of Utah, and if you look at what Utah does, I mean, think about Dalton Kincaid, coming out of Utah, and this is what Utah is known for, those big, fat jumbo sets where I feel like the University of Utah just goes out there and they're just like, hey, you're big. You want to come play football? Like, they don't even give a shit if you're skilled. They're just like, hey, come play ball. Like, and it just works out for them. They kicked the ever-loving shit. And I'm a big USC fan. They beat our asses in the Pac-12 championship a couple years ago. And a lot of that reason was comparatively, it was like going to the land of giants and trying to play them in football. They just threw us around. It was absolutely wild. This guy is no different. It's just that Utah style of football. Hey, big, nasty, mean, check. You're in. Here's a scholarship.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, he clocked in at a 76.9 PFF overall grade. He had an 83.1 receiving grade, which is great, and a 61.7 run block grade, which, okay, that's not too bad, but as a tight end, what are NFL teams going to be looking for? Can you block? Yep. And if you can keep your, as you said, his contested catch rate was only 26.7. So yeah, he's having a little trouble. He had a little trouble there, but one statistic that I've been tracking is the good old yak, yards after catch. So out of the 620 yards he got in 2025, 257 of those yards were yards after the catch. And he also had 10 forced missed tackles, and 31 first downs. What is another key element of any football game? What do you got to do? You got to get the first down. You got to get to the sticks. And as you'll see with my picks a little bit later on, I'm highlighting the number of first downs that they got in the previous year because, listen, if you can get to the sticks, you can keep the drive going, and that is, I believe, a heavily underrated statistic.
Absolutely, and you want to talk about a guy that can get to the sticks? We're going to talk about this number 3 guy. I believe that this guy, and I'm not just saying this as a USC Trojans fan and a homer, I believe that this guy is an underrated tight end to watch in this draft. I'm excited to see him. I believe he's going to be at the combine out of USC, Lake McCree. Man, listen, I love Lake McCree. He's got reliable hands, and he only had 2 drops in 5 college seasons. I think that says a lot. He adjusts his body and positions himself well to make contested catches in a way where only he's going to get them. He's got the versatility to play both inline tight end and split out wide. He's got the speed and ball tracking skills to take the top off the defense. I take the top off. He goes out and he averages 17.6 yards per catch in 2025. This guy is legit. The cons on him, he does have an injury history. He had a torn ACL back in 2023. He has the height, but not the weight preferred for the position. He's just 230 pounds. He's going to need to work on his blocking techniques and his angles. His highest single-season run blocking grade was just a 58.7 in 2021. But Lake McCree, man, I love me some Lake McCree. He was fun to watch. He's one of those guys where if you needed a play, and if Mekhi Lemon was wrapped up and you needed a play when you need it, Lake McCree, man, you could find that guy somewhere, and he would come up with some play out of nowhere. He had a lot of these back shoulder catches where, Jaden Mayava would throw it up, and he would just kind of Adam Thielen style turn back and make the catch on an underthrown ball and make Mayava look like $1 million. Lake McCree is the real deal. I'm excited to watch him come into the league. I think he's going to be a stud. A lot of people projecting him to go to the Green Bay Packers. That could very well be the case here.
Yep.
I could see him being a fit over there if he does go to Green Bay.
You know where I see him going? Well, Pro Football Focus on their big board. I take a look at the trends tab there. So, kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit, but I'm seeing him. He most likely will be drafted by, and again, there's more information to come out after the combine, right before the draft, so this might change. But as it stands, 24%, it looks like he's going to go to Minnesota, 9% for New England, and 9% for the New York Football Jets. And he's projected as a late, almost Mr. Irrelevant. He's in the high, he's in the 200s. But we always find those diamonds in the rough in those late rounds. That's not a bad thing. He had a 69 overall PFF grade, had a 72 receiving grade, and a 54.9 run blocking grade. So those numbers don't pop off the page per se. And he only had 405 pass snaps last year. And so, he doesn't really have a comparable workload compared to some of these other tight ends. He got a little bit of a case of the drop skis, and his contested catch rate's only 63.6. And he's only made, 7 contested catches out of 11 attempts. But and his yards after the catch, only 185, and out of a total 445 yards he got. So if you're looking at it from a numbers perspective, they don't pop off the page. But again, kids, you have to understand the numbers game only tells half the story. You have to have the eye test. And that's why we watch the Senior Bowl. That's why we watch the Legacy Bowl. That's why we watch the Shriner Bowl. That's why we watch this tape and get a look at how guys are moving. That's why we go to the combine. If you can see things that a spreadsheet just won't tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lake McCree, I think it's I think he went to the proper place with USC, but again, this is another one of those times where team and scheme will matter. He's going to go to a team that utilizes the tight end in a different way that really can use his skill set and can accent his skill set. And I think that's going to be a big thing for Lake McCree wherever he ends up going. Same with this next guy. And this guy I like a lot, not just because of how good he was this last year, but also because of the fact that he had a great quarterback in Pavia thrown to him, Diego Pavia. And let's talk about Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. He was the 2025 John Mackey Award winner, 2025 Campbell Award winner for academic football performance and leadership. So I think that says a lot about him as a tight end, but also as a person and a character. His character can never be called into question. This dude, he's lightning quick for the position. He's got excellent route running and agility to go with the speed to create massive plays after the catch. He's got the versatility to line up in line, in the slot, or even out wide. He's got super soft hands. He tracks and high points the ball well in traffic, making all sorts of circus catches with his big catch radius. The cons on him, the size is an issue. Okay, and that's the biggest thing. It's the size and strength. He gets bullied when he's playing as an inline tight end by some of these edge rushers and linebackers. And he just lacks the strength and hand techniques to be an effective blocker. He gets walked backwards by the stronger opposition. Now look, and listen, I understand the blocking is an issue, but that's not his game. And we said the same thing last year about a guy that went to the Cleveland Browns and Harold Fannin, and look at what he's doing, right? Harold Fannin on a Bowling Green. And Harold Fannin basically he said, well, I'm tight end 1 in Cleveland now. See you later, David Njoku. And he just took over and did his thing. So to me, Eli Stowers kind of reads the same way. He's that guy. he's going to wind up being a pass catching, receiving tight end. You're not going to get good blocking out of him. You're not going to get, an outside zone scheme out of him. It's just not happening. Okay. Right. You have a playmaker. That's what he's going to be, a playmaker that lines up at the tight end position. Eli Stowers, you got to love him, right?
Yep, absolutely. Most of his snaps were done from the slot position. So, so you sometimes you'll see him in line. Sometimes you'll just see him out wide because, but I mean, his bread and butter seems to be the slot. He had an 81.6 overall PFF grade. He had an 85.3 receiving grade and a 51.2 run block grade. And as you said, he's 6'4", 235. So he's not a big, nasty Utah tight end. But, sometimes that actually might work in your favor. If you have a little less weight, you can move around a little bit quicker. He didn't really have a huge workload in 25. He only had 333 pass snaps. But, he went 62 for, 62 out of 85 and for 769 yards. So he got some work done. He's got a 6% drop rate. You could do better with that. 41% with a contested catch rate. I mean that's kind of deceptive. He didn't really have a whole lot of them. Out of 17 attempts where he had the opportunity to make a contested catch, he made 7 of them. So I mean that's not bad. And the statistic that's jumping out to me is 2 of them. First of all, Yak. You got 377 yak yards out of his 769, so that's pretty good. And it's about a 6.1 average, of 6 yards after the catch per catch. And here's
I'll take a 6.1 average. Yeah, I'll take a 6.1 average on that.
Yeah, for yak receiving, and a 12.4 overall average. And then here's another number that's jumping off the page. I mean, he had 40 first downs. 4-0. Now, so that tells me one thing. You know what that tells me? That tells me that if you want to get to the sticks, this guy is your guy. And I think catch radius, factors really big into this. It's like that red zone threat where you just need that 1 or 2 yards just to keep the drive going. That's your guy. Tight end drive and just go for it.
Exactly. And there's one other guy that I think we're going to be talking about as our top tight end prospect. He's basically by and far considered the top prospect out of this draft from the tight end spot. Let's talk about Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. Look, he's considered a bona fide first round pick. We've been talking about him quite a bit. He's got a faster than normal time here with the 40 time, man. 4.5 40 time for him. That's an unofficial, but man, a 4.5 40 time for Kenyon Sadiq is pretty damn good. He tracks the ball well. He can make catches at every level in any way imaginable. He just adjusts his body well to the ball. He makes the catch. He's got the versatility to play inline, in the slot, and out wide. He's a playmaker down the seam, though. Just you line him up in line, and he's just going to do his thing. He's unafraid of contact, and he's able to make physical contested catches in traffic. The cons on him, he's got a slight issue with some concentration drops on what should be just easy catches. Just hit him in the hands and he just drops them. Slightly undersized from a weight perspective. He gets bullied a little bit by the more aggressive DBs and linebackers. That lack of size causes some blocking issues for him. He does get a little grabby, and it causes some holding penalties. But and they will at the pro level. But I mean, at the end of the day, Kenyon Sadiq, I think easily by and far, he is the best tight end out of this class. He showed up multiple times, multiple touchdowns in big games. If you recall, against Ohio State Big Ten championship game, I think he had a 2 or 3 touchdown game in that one. I mean, he's a playmaker. He's a guy that's going to put points on the board. I like Kenyon Sadiq.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too. Now, his grades are kind of deceptive. I mean, they're good. He had a 70.4 overall PFF grade. He had a 69 receiving grade and a 66.3 run block grade. So he's consistent. It's nice and even. He had 412 pass snaps. Now, and again, the drop rate's a little bit of a concern. That's 10%. But when you consider the fact that he only got targeted 67 times in 2025 and 6 of those passes were drops, that's 10%. So, glass half full. He had 30 first downs. So again, a guy that you want to get to the sticks. Had 8 touchdowns. He also had 8 forced missed tackles. So yeah, if you want a guy that can get that big arm out and stiff arm him, that's definitely what you want out of him. 248 yards after the catch. That's a 4.9 average for all of the 560 total yards he got. And as far as trends go, take a look at this. Yes, he's definitely going first round. But
no doubt.
30%. It's saying 30% for the Philadelphia Eagles, 17% for the Denver Broncos, and 10% for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So,
and I think he would be a fit. I think he's a fit for the Bucs. Everybody's got to remember that Cade Otton's going to wind up being a free agent at the end of this year. Cade Otton's been okay. I think Sadiq is a better version of Cade Otton. I think he's a much improved version of Cade Otton, to be honest with you. I like Kenyon Sadiq, and there's a degree of consistency. I agree. I know the numbers aren't like popping off the page or anything like that, but when you think about Kenyon Sadiq and the place he came from, Oregon is not one of those places that exclusively uses the tight end, like that. And I really think that they're more of a run-heavy, pro-style, balanced offense.
Yes.
You don't get that a whole lot when that tight end targeting all the time like that. You're not going to get that in Oregon.
Yeah, he only had 67 targets. So I mean, so you have that. Plus his run blocking grade, again, 66.3. That's well above average. And in a run style offense, what do you want to have the tight end do? Be able to block somebody.
Yep.
So those pro style offenses, while again the stats don't jump off the sheet. But, that's where the eye test comes into play. How well does he mesh with the schemes? How well does he run his routes? How well does he perform his job? Because if you do your job, then you stand the best chance for success.
Yep. Now, Alex, you've got some sleepers for me, or some guys that I didn't jump into. Go ahead and hit me with some of these.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with a couple of notes, a couple of honorable mentions. At first, I was looking at this cat from North Carolina State, Justin Joly, because he was one of the highest ranked tight ends in Pro Football Focus. But oddly enough, Dante Daniels was ranked much higher than his teammate, but I couldn't find him on the PFF big board. So, and he is a senior. 2026 is a draft eligible year. So, could it possibly be that Dante Daniels is just going to go back to college and get polished up more, or are we just not hearing enough about this guy? And here's another interesting thing. I was looking at Rohan Jones at first because out of all the tight ends on Pro Football Focus this year, he was ranked 3rd. But the problem with that is he only played 300 snaps. That's not really, you don't really get a decent data size, a sample size with only 300 offensive snaps. So either we might be dealing with an injury concern, or they just didn't have him on the field enough. So you kind of have to ask yourself that. But here are the guys who made my cut. First off, we're talking about Max Clare, a junior out of Ohio State. He had a 69.3 overall PFF grade, a 66.5 receiving grade, and a 71.6 run blocking grade. So there's that for you. And in 2025, he had 43 catches out of 55 targets for a 78.2 completion rate. Again, 55 targets is not a sizable workload as the tight end, but considering his run blocking grade, he's probably a run blocking tight end. He did get 448 total yards out of that, so he got some work done for a 10.4 average. He only got 2 touchdowns, and half of his yards, 224 yards, were yards after catch. And he got 22 first downs to boot. So this is a guy you definitely want to get the sticks to. He did give up 2 drops 2 interceptions, and a fumble. So, obviously, with defenses being as skilled as they are these days, that's not terrible, but you definitely want to keep those numbers as low as you possibly can. So
Claire's a good he's a good route runner, man. I watched some tape on him. I loved his route running, and the fact that he makes plays after the catch. That was another big thing. You were talking about yak and rack. This is a guy that really stood out, and he damn near made my list. Yeah, he was yay close. I was like, man,
so
I was like, man, Alex better just take him up. And
I was there to pick up the pieces, and getting into the pros. You just said it. He is a terrific route runner, silky smooth, and he has deceptive acceleration. So for a guy his size, he can really turn on the jets and kind of make defenders wonder where the guy went. And again, he is a threat after the catch, and again, 50% of his yards were yards after the catch. And here's another thing. He was formerly a quarterback. So that knowledge and that experience gives him an edge, and he has the ability to recognize coverage pre-snap. So, he can use his skills as a former quarterback to kind of diagnose, blitzes and diagnose defensive packages. So that's definitely a plus for him. Now, the cons on this guy, he is a bit injury prone. He had a pretty bad ankle injury that sidelined him in 2023. So again, availability and reliability. He does need to work. He does need more work in his blocking, despite his high run blocking grade. Gets kind of handsy, and he also has a high pad level. So defensive tackles can really just take that center of gravity and just bulldoze him around. And also
the grabbiness. I did notice some of the grabbiness it has caused some penalties for him. It's a lot of it. He doesn't get inside the arms and get those hands in the chest the way you want. And a lot of that is going to come with that's something that can be coached up. That's hand technique. I think that's going to be something for him to improve on over time. But ultimately, you're talking about a pass catching tight end. I think I don't think anybody is. There's not going to be many teams that are going to have him doing a whole lot of blocking. Kind of like we were talking about Stowers earlier on. This is one of those guys where it's like, you're a pass catcher. We're gonna leave you at that. We'll put you in the slot more often than not.
Yep. And then there's another thing he does need to get coached up on. Good defensive backs can sense when he's going to start his break. He kind of has tells. Like he'll be able to telegraph his movements. Not be able to. I mean, he telegraphs his movements. So really good DBs who have a really good sense of this stuff can use that split second to kind of, anticipate where he's going to go next. And speaking about where he's going to go next, his likely landing spots are as follows. I've got Philadelphia at 20%, Washington at 10%, and Denver at 10%. So we got that going. The second guy on my list is a redshirt senior out of the University of Baylor, Michael Trigg. He has a 72.4 overall PFF grade, a 77.3% receiving grade, only a 46 run blocking grade. So, his blocking leaves something to be desired. In 2025, he had 50 catches out of 85 attempts for a 58.8 completion rate, for 694 total yards for a 13.9 average. He had 6 touchdowns and 224 yards after the catch, 31 first downs.
Real quick, I want to acknowledge somebody that's joined our stream here, Mr. Brandon Gunder, who is a huge Ohio State fan. Welcome to the show. Yes, yeah, I know. But look, we're live. Yep, we are live. We've got the live stream going on Twitch. We're on Kick. We're on X. We're on Facebook Live. We're going to be putting all this stuff there. Max is a beast. His brother is a tight end at Purdue. See, there's shit I didn't know. But hey, I appreciate that. But I do like Max quite a bit. I think he's going to be really good at the pro level. But moving forward, Alex, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's great. No, I wholeheartedly agree, too. I mean, that guy's going to be something. Going back to Michael Trigg here, had 224 yards after the catch, 31 first downs, and he gave up 7 drops and 2 interceptions, but he did not fumble the ball one time. So, I mean, and again, interceptions are fairly common in the league these days, and even in college, because again, defenses are starting to get a lot more crafty. You know, especially if you get lined up against some of the topper tier players in the Big 12. Is that even a word? So. Pros on this guy, on Michael Trigg. He has a great combination of size and agility for route running and physicality. You know, so he can really do some damage. You know, both blocking wise and in his routes. He's also a red zone threat due to his long arms. He can high point the ball and allow the quarterback to, as we put it in his shirt pocket. So he's able to make plays with his big long arms.
You know what I love about him is his speed. I think he is faster than hell. He's agile. We talk about ankle breaking. That's what this guy does. Trigg. He just breaks guys' ankles with a lot of these agility moves. He doesn't telegraph these things a whole lot. He just goes out there and boom, boom. It's one cut and he leaves DBs in the dust. It's just incredible to watch. But he's fast, man. He's just so quick. That is the kind of guy that is going to be a big-time playmaker at the tight end position. People need to watch him. I'm excited to see him at the combine. He's one guy that stood out. We're going to see, obviously we're going to see the passing drills that go on tight end day. He's going to be one guy that I think is going to have himself a big day.
Yeah, and there's another reason, too. I mean, on top of his athleticism, on top of his physicality, he also has a pretty high IQ with zone coverage. And we've talked about this is where the NFL has been heading for a while, is zone coverage. Yeah. You know, it's becoming more of a zone coverage league. That's not to say that man is, going the way of the dodo. Far from it. Well,
and that stands to reason. Here's the thing, yes, it's going to be going in the way of zone coverage, but one thing I want to see especially from him is when we get to the combine and we start looking at those one-on-one drills where they're taking on DBs, and we're going to see if he can take them on in man, because he does struggle with press man coverage. He does struggle with those types of things. Gunder, thank you for the follow. I appreciate you, brother. But he does struggle with those press coverage corners and those more physical long corners that when they get their hands on him, they can knock him off his spot, and it takes him almost completely out of a play sometimes. I want to see if he can go in to the combine when we get down there and he can battle it out with those DBs and prove a lot of these scouting reports wrong, that he can't handle, and I say it, can't handle man coverage. Well, I want to see if he can handle that press man coverage. I want to see if he can not get jammed at the line and just be completely removed from the situation.
Right, and you took the words right out of my mouth, but I will say that there is one other con I'd like to highlight here. He did hit the transfer portal quite a few times, and so there's there's a little bit of concern with commitment. Is he just gonna be a journeyman in the NFL, or is he gonna stick with the team that drafts him? And this is something that can also be coached. And again, right team, right scheme, you could probably get him to sit down, because you hit the transfer portal. I mean, you have to ask yourself, what were the situations like at the schools that he went to? Were they having trouble? Did they not utilize him enough? Those are questions you have to ask yourself when it comes to, you look at that statement, you go, commitment concerns. Well, hold on a second. Where did he go?
Yeah.
So likely landing spots for Michael Trigg. I almost said Frank Trigg. I was thinking about the UFC fighter. The likely landing spots for Michael Trigg, Kansas City at 18%, Tampa Bay at 12%, and Miami at 9%. Yeah. So, and moving on,
I could see him going to Miami. I could see Miami being a good fit for him.
I mean, they need all the help they need all the help they can get. I mean, all they have is Mike Gesicki.
Yeah. You got Gesicki's gone. You had Darren Waller last year in Miami, and Waller. That was he popped up every for 2 games and a couple touchdowns, and then it was like, oh, I'm hurt again.
Right. So, again, availability and reliability. You got to have somebody that can, stick around and do the job. And the last guy on my list here, again, I was doing some shuffling around and I saw this guy. I'm like, hey, Let's get a look at this guy, Carson Ryan, a redshirt senior out of BYU, Brigham Young.
Boy.
An 82.6 overall PFF grade, an 82.6 receiving grade, and a 75.3 run blocking grade. His grades were outstanding. Mm-hmm. And his statistics, I mean, he didn't get a whole lot of work from a pass reception perspective. He had 45 completions out of 59 attempts, so he had a 76.3 completion rate. But he had less than 60 attempts, less than 60 targets. Yeah. But with those 45 catches, he went for 620 total yards. So that's a 13.8 average. So that counts for something. Had 3 touchdowns, had 336 yards after the catch. Again, 50% yak. 28 first downs, so he got to the sticks, and he only gave up 2 drops and 2 interceptions, 0 fumbles in 2025. So he's very secure with the ball. Pros on him: strong physical blocker at the line and in space. Yeah. That's what you want out of a tight end. You want the guy to be able to run upfield, and when the receiver's making a play at the sideline, you want the tight end right there to just bury that defensive player into the dirt.
He gives me Jackson Hawes vibes so bad out of the Buffalo Bills there. I mean, Jackson Hawes, blocking tight end. He was on our rookie list because his blocking grades were so outrageously good. We're talking a guy that, I mean, it's funny that we had a blocking tight end make it to our top rookies list for this past season. And it's like, wait, we didn't expect that. But I mean, this dude was putting up 91 run blocking grades and shit. I'm just like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, at the pro level, no less.
Yeah, I mean, that's Carson Ryan gives me Jackson Hawes vibes. That's what he does. He's going to be a rotational guy that comes in and you stick him in a jumbo set. You give him that situation. Well, okay, we're at the 1. Hey, let me get Carson out there and let him do his thing. And yeah, I'm with you 110%. 6'4", 250. Yeah, I mean, that's where he's at. That's
a pro-ready frame right there, buddy. That's a big boy.
Yeah,
Yep, and he has experience with, and he is versatile in multiple offensive systems. So again, you can put him in the slot, you can put him in the line, you can have him out wide. Do whatever you want. He will line up for you. But the cons on him, ironically enough, he's not really a consistent route runner. So, whereas the other 2 tight ends are more, passing and receiving tight ends, this guy sounds more like a blocker, which, hey, I'm not mad at all. But there is something to be concerned about. Obviously, there's the injury bug. He missed his entire freshman year and most of the 2024 season. So. Obviously, before his 2025 season, and he kind of has a ceiling, despite his athleticism. He kind of has a ceiling. So unless a coach can, unless a coach can really push that ceiling up and give him some more room, he's only gonna get so far. But but any team would be silly to pass him up in the 4th or 5th round. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And the likely
I don't see him putting up gaudy receiving numbers. I don't see that at all. You're not going to see Travis Kelce numbers out of this guy. Mm-hmm. But one thing that you will see out of him is really solid blocking. He's going to come into a situation. I think Baltimore would be a great fit for him. A place where power run matters. You can stick him in Seattle, and you can now you got a lead blocker for Kenny Walker over there. If they do bring him back, you could put him over there. A great spot for him would probably be the New York Jets. If you really think about it, number 1, they're just finishing up with Tyler Conklin, but number 2. You put him over there, and now you've got somebody to complement that left tackle situation. I mean, you already have Armand Membu on the right who's shutting things down over there. Now you put him over on the left side. I think that would be a brilliant move for them, especially if they decide to bring back Breece Hall, get a lead blocker for him. I think this is smart. I could see him landing with the Jets.
Yep, absolutely. There are a couple of other places he could land. And again, a quick note on Baltimore. How much longer are we going to see Mark Andrews out there? He's on his last legs. He's probably got one or two more decent years before Mark Andrews hangs it up. So you're right about Baltimore, but the other likely landing spots are Chicago at 20%, Green Bay at 16%, and the New England Patriots at 8%. He'd be a really nice match alongside Hunter Henry.
Yeah, he could be a good lead blocker. I think Henderson over there needed a little more lead blocking, especially when he was getting outside the tackles, because he was busy a lot of times. Henderson was busy making chicken salad out of chicken shit, a lot of times, and putting up some big time plays. And if he had a lead blocker of that caliber out there, no doubt in my mind that I think that he would be successful. But Alex, I think those are your tight ends. Boots will be back next week. We're going to be talking about his top tight ends coming out of the combine here. I'm super fired up for the combine at the end of this week. We do have NFL combine players that we want to dive into, the guys we're going to see. These combine invites, we got them broken down by position here. The full list of prospects that have been invited. Let's jump into the quarterbacks first. I know Joey Aguilar out of Tennessee is going to be there. Guys that really catch my eye, though, I'm pretty fired up. Obviously, Fernando's been invited, but Fernando Mendoza is not going to be throwing at the combine. That's already been announced. So, I think you're pretty secure. You're going to be the number one overall pick.
Yeah, you don't really need to do a whole lot of proving, No. At the same time, he's reserving his statistics for pro day, and that's basically what we're going to be dealing with here. So.
Yeah, guys I want to take a look at, in this whole situation. Obviously, Ty Simpson is going to be one we're going to want to look at. I know both you and I are fired up about Diego Pavia. Mm-hmm. We want to see if he can boost his draft stock a little bit. Guys that are going to have to fix some of the things, though, Drew Aller is going to have some work to do.
Yep. We have not talked about that young man in months.
We haven't.
He was supposed to be this prolific quarterback out of Penn State, and it's like, well, he just wasn't the guy. So, if he wants to raise his draft stock, he's going to have to show up and show out. And, it was kind of like Max Brosmer. We didn't talk a whole lot about Max Brosmer last year, but when we saw him at the combine, he was like, hey, wait a minute. This kid might have something.
Yep. Drew Aller, the problem with him was the injuries and a lot of, the big meltdown at Penn State that went on. He's going to have. It
did not help that James Franklin got canned halfway through the season.
No, but here's my thing. Drew Aller, when we went into the season last year, we were talking about a group of quarterbacks that were going to be the top guys coming out of this whole thing, right? We were talking about Garrett Nussmeier. We were talking about Cade Klubnik. We were talking about Drew Aller. It almost looked like it was going to be a really strong quarterback class, right? Mm-hmm. And then you saw it like about 6 games in, then we're having a whole different conversation about a whole different group of quarterbacks. Then we're talking about Mendoza and Pavia, and we're talking about, Mateer. We're having all these different conversations about quarterbacks that weren't even in the discussion at the beginning of the season. It was weird. Yeah. But those guys that we were talking about at the very beginning of the college football season, they're going to have their work cut out for them. Guys like Garrett Nussmeier, who did really well in the Senior Bowl, by the way, had himself a good showing. He's got to remind everybody just who in the hell he is. Mm-hmm. Cade Klubnik struggled in Clemson this year.
He sure did.
And everybody made him out to be like the top dog. Everybody said, "Oh, this is going to be our number one guy." Well, not so much. I don't see that out of Klubnik. Carson Beck did a really good job, shutting up some of the doubters and saying, all right,
he made
here
it to
I
the
am. I'm still around.
Yep, he made it to the national title game. Had a chance to get his team to drive his team down the field to win the game. And obviously, he threw that pick to seal it for Indiana, but still. I mean, for his age and for the stuff that he's gone through, he still, has a lot that he can bring to the table if he has a good combine. You want to know who I want to see too? I want to see Haynes King and Luke Altmaier. I loved Haynes King out of Georgia Tech. That guy, you talk about a guy who makes plays with his legs, and Altmaier also, Illinois has had some quietly good players. That's a quietly good team. Luke Altmaier is one of those guys that kind of help things along. And I'm also curious to see about Garrett Nussmeier. We saw him in the Senior Bowl. Can he carry some of that momentum through the combine?
Yep. One guy I just want to point out that's sort of a dark horse guy is actually Cole Payton out of North Dakota State. Had himself a really, really nice little offseason so far. So get ready to watch him. Jumping into the running backs, a guy we talked about a little bit was Max Bredesen out of Michigan, the fullback. I mean, hey, big nasty fullback. We liked him a lot. But, Jadarian Price, obviously, hasn't been getting a lot of the love
hype. And the love because of Jeremiah Love. You see what I did there?
Yep. I love it. But Jeremiah Love, like that. But Jeremiah Love is, he's been getting all the hype, right? And we haven't really heard much about Jadarian Price. I'm hoping we get to hear a little bit more out of Price. I'm also hoping we get to hear a little bit more out of Jam Miller in this whole situation. We've had a few guys that have had some really nice off-season workouts, though. Guys like Mike Washington, guys like Jamari Taylor, both of which I brought up last week. They were both on my list. Kalen Black is another one. We've been talking about him a little bit, getting kind of fired up about him. Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, one guy I talked about last week. There's a few guys on this list right now that have a true opportunity to build their draft stock. Nicholas Singleton is a guy that's sort of been underrated too and overlooked, in the Penn State situation. So, and he got kind of pushed around a little bit in the Senior Bowl situation. He got dumped on his ass a couple of times. So we got to think about him as well. CJ Donaldson's another one that I'm a little on the fence about. I don't know. You got to show me something this weekend. So I hope we get to see a little bit more out of him. Receiver wise, we talked about our receivers quite a bit. Obviously, I don't think if I was a betting man, I'd say Mekhi Lemon probably isn't going to be doing any catching in this one.
He doesn't have to.
No, but Jacoby Lane, his teammate, should probably be out there catching some passes, right?
Yep.
A guy that is garnering a lot of hype, but I'm not sure if it's fully merited. And I'm not entirely sold on is Zachariah Branch. I want to see if Zachariah Branch is that real deal. A lot of people it seems like he's gotten way more hype than a lot of us thought he should get. Boots said the same thing last week. He wasn't really super high on Zachariah Branch. A lot of people are saying he's the 5th best receiver out of this class. I'm like, you sure about that? Because I don't see it. But I'm not just saying that because he's a turncoat that left USC and went elsewhere. I'm just saying I just don't know that he is that top dog. You're going to want to see some stuff though. Out of a few of these guys,
Yeah. Do you think you want to go to Waffle House and with Elijah Surratt? Because that's somebody I would like to see. And then you were mentioning Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. Yeah.
Ted Hurst is another one. He put on a show at in the Senior Bowl workouts. I love Ted Hurst. He was fun to watch. There are quite a few guys that are coming out of here. Deion Burks out of Oklahoma is another one that's got an opportunity to build his draft stock. He's going to have to do that, through this whole situation. And Carnell Tate is another one. Also, Reggie Virgil is a guy that great Senior Bowl workout. I want to see what he does. Reggie Virgil, he looked every bit of a number one receiver. I mean, the dude was everywhere. I want to see what Reggie Virgil does. He was incredible. going into the tight ends, obviously we talked about the ones we want to see, but Oscar Delp is one that stands out to me out of Georgia, of one of the invites. I'm excited to see him. We're going to, obviously Eli Stowers is there. Michael Trigg is going to be there. Kenyon Sadiq, he's been invited. We'll see if he does anything, but he has been invited. Max Clare out of Ohio State will be there. So obviously we're going to be seeing Justin Jolie. You mentioned him. I want to see what he's all about. Also, Matthew Hibner out of SMU is another one that I want to take a look at. Lake McCree will be there. So getting fired up about some of these guys. Offensive lineman wise, oh, goodness.
Yep.
We talked about him a little while ago.
Get the magnifying glass out.
Yep. Pat Coogan, baby. That's my guy.
Coog.
I want to see what Pat does. Coog, baby. I want to see what he does. Sam Hecht out of Kansas State. I know he was one of your guys.
Mm-hmm.
Fired up about Sam Hecht. I want to see what he does. Caden Proctor out of Alabama. We'll see what he does, if anything, but I'm excited to see Caden Proctor. He's obviously going to have a microscope on him. They're going to be watching every single thing that Caden Proctor does. Also, Jake Slaughter out of Florida. I've mentioned him earlier. He's the consensus #1 center out of this whole situation. Carver Willis out of Washington. He's been having himself a nice little offseason. He's been talked about quite a bit. So a number of offensive linemen.
Yep.
Day 4 is going to matter big time. And people just need to understand that. And people, if you are Spencer Fano, if he's going to be doing anything, you want to watch him.
Jennings Dunker out of Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah. Jennings Dunker is another one. I mean, Caleb Lomu out of Utah.
I just want to see Jennings Dunker, if nothing else, because of that sweet mullet he's rocking.
Yeah.
He better have that mullet when he gets on the field. I'm telling you right now.
It's the handlebar mustache and the mullet for you. I get it.
I know
that's your guy.
I don't know why. It's the first thing you see and it just catches your attention. And then you stay for the movements and the kick steps and all that.
Absolutely. Defensive lineman Logan Fano out of Utah. I mean, we're going to see him over there. Reuben Bain, obviously, is the guy that everybody's watching. Reuben Bain Jr. is the man. You know, everybody wants to see what he's capable of. It's going to be a really, really strong. Zion Young out of Missouri is another one. Nadame Tucker out of Western Michigan had a really good Senior Bowl. I want to see what he's capable of. Also, Caleb Proctor out of Southeastern Louisiana is another one. This is going to be a draft for the trenches. Lee Hunter as well, by the way, out of Texas Tech. Romello Height out of Texas Tech as well. Two of those guys, I mean, both out of Texas Tech, just monsters. There are Bryson Eason also out of Tennessee will be there, so I'm excited for that. So we've got some guys to watch here. It's going to be one in the trenches though in this draft, and if you're going to be watching day 1 and day 4, I think are the 2 days to watch if you're going to be doing anything. As for the linebackers, hey man, we already talked about a number of these guys. Arvell Reese out of Ohio State, that's a Brandon Gunder guy. You know, he's a stud. This guy is. He's a stud. I want to see what he winds up doing. Eric Gentry out of USC. I'm a big Gentry fan, but Bryce Betcher out of Oregon.
That was the guy you had your eye on throughout the entire Senior Bowl, and you know I can't blame you. I mean, that guy looks every bit a leader. He's kind of like an Eric Kendricks almost. I mean, except
He does it all, and as a Mike linebacker, he's a leader on that defense. I like Betcher. It's going to be Arvell Reese, Betcher. You're probably going to be looking at Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh as well. He's a stud. Get fired up about some of these guys because these linebackers, everybody's kind of overlooking the linebacker position these days, and I don't know why. As for the defensive backs, Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. I listen.
No brainer.
Bud Clark out of TCU had himself a hell of an offseason so far. Bud Clark has, man, you want to talk a great defensive back. He was a great safety, and that's what he was playing at the Senior Bowl. He was playing safety, just shutting everybody down. I like him a lot. There's going to be it's a large Kamari Ramsey as well. It's a large defensive back class here, and look, Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee, he's going to be a top 12 pick. And I really hope we get to see him He's an invite. I hope we get to see him a lot at this Senior Bowl. Also, Colton Hood out of Tennessee is another guy that I'm pretty excited about. Both those Tennessee corners are pretty spectacular. As for the specialists, obviously we're going to see some kickers and punters. Ryan Eckley out of Michigan State, I'm excited about. I actually want to see him. And Jack Stonehouse out of Syracuse. Those are the two guys that I'm really excited to watch. But yeah, those are the Senior Bowl invites. Get ready to watch those. Alex, that's our show, man.
Yeah.
The Combine is just a couple of days away. We're going to be driving to Indianapolis. Thank you for the follow, Sylview. I appreciate that. But we're going to be driving down to Indianapolis. I'm fired up about it. It's one of the annual trips that I love so very, very much. And I know you do as well. We like to swing out to all the breweries and stuff out there in Indy. You know, for those of you who want to, say hi, don't be strangers. We're going to be out there in Indianapolis. We're going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium. We're going to be having ourselves a good time. If you see us at the breweries, if you see us out there at a restaurant, hey, don't be strangers. Come hang out. We're like the most fun. We might buy you a beer. So come on out. Come say hi. Come hang out. Check out some of this stuff. But before we get out of here, Alex, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of our sponsors. Let's talk about It's Your Time Massage. Amanda's a wonderful massage therapist. She's the best in the Metro Detroit area. If you need a massage, you got to check out iytmassage.com. You can book yourself an appointment, or you can find her at It's Your Time Massage LLC on Facebook. She does Swedish and deep tissue massages. She's got package deals. She's got gift certificates. She's got, for a little bit extra, you can get that red light therapy. You can get some CBD oil. You can get yourself a foot sugar scrub. You can get all muscle scraping, all that good stuff you can get at It's Your Time Massage. She's the best of the best at what she does. Check it out, iytmassage.com, or you can find her at It's Your Time Massage LLC on Facebook and book yourself an appointment. And remember, folks, it's your time. Also, let's talk about Steele Twins Gaming. Alex, what do you got going on over there?
So, do you like video games? Do you like theater? The Steele Twins Gaming may just be what you're looking for. Whether it's the good old first-person shooter, RPG, or your favorite story-based adventures, we think we have something for just about everyone. We got everything you need to satisfy your digital cravings, whatever they may be. And best of all, our channel has something nobody else has: voice acting. Every week, my brother and I will play a game that has a lot of text-based dialogue, and we will act it out with the voices that come up in our heads for the characters you see on screen. Sometimes we do our best to highlight the drama of the situation, and other times we just goof off to have a good time. Either way, we're sure you'll be entertained. So we're kind of in flux as when we're going to be on. I mean, we used to be on every Sunday night, but if you want to keep up with the Joneses, follow us on Twitter at Steele Twins Alex to keep up to date on our shenanigans. And hey, don't forget the brother channel, Steele Twins Andy. It is there that you'll get your full fix of Nostalgic Mondays, Nintendo Tuesdays, FPS Wednesdays, Indie Thursdays, Open World Fridays, sometimes you get a random Saturday, and Metroid Prime Sundays.
Yeah, I've been enjoying all of your guys' streams. Andy's been out there just killing it lately. Just on point every single night. I love it.
As a matter of fact, as we are speaking right this very moment, my brother is doing a Nostalgic Monday with Bomberman 64, The Second Attack. So it's a rare Japanese game that we picked up at a pawn shop for about $60 or so. Highly entertaining, and we've played it a couple times. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go see it. And and of course, I'd be remiss again. I got to remind myself every single week, we got to get Bad Dudes on there at some point.
Got to get Bad Dudes.
Yep.
Otherwise, Boot's gonna freak out. He needs Bad Dudes.
Yep, he sure does.
Also, we want to talk about the artist formerly known as Big Willie Dubs Gaming, now known as No Shot Bot TTV. You want to see first-person shooter stuff, you head over to No Shot Bot TTV. It's very entertaining. You can find him on Twitch. You can find him on Facebook. You can find him over there on the TikTok. there's my old man moment for the day. But you can find him on the TikTok there. And man, Will's a very entertaining guy. A lot of his stuff is just phenomenal. I mean, you can find him on the TikTok. He's got all these fun videos, man. Just blowing people's heads off and stuff. It's fucking hilarious. But
he was riding in a helicopter on Warzone one time, and he traced this shot and took it and got a headshot from like 76 meters. It was insane. But that's not all he's known for, is it?
No, he does all kinds of entertaining stuff on his channel. I mean, I was talking about a couple days ago, I got to sit in with him and we played a game where we were eating nasty jelly beans. I got to eat a booger flavored jelly bean, which was very entertaining stuff. Or he did the Hot Ones challenge on there. Every now and then he threatens his wife that he's going to shave off his beard. And she's like, no. And he's just like, oh, I'm going to, if I get so many likes. And so next thing you know, we're all liking the channel and shit. It's hilarious. So yeah, check it out. The artist formerly known as Big Willie Doves Gaming. Got to check out No Shot Bot TTV. And last but not least, let's talk about books.
Yes.
Alex, we got to talk about this book called I Ate Cookies Out of the Trash by Tammy Pruitt. Hey, it's an inspirational guide based on her real life experiences dealing with body image and eating issues. And she shapes her book with her struggles and how she overcame them. And it's supported with research-based facts. And it's accompanied by her professional advice as a registered dietitian. She lets others know that they're not alone in struggling with self-love and body image and disordered eating. And listen, she's not your stereotypical health guru who runs 7 miles a day and judges people for all the unhealthy crap they eat. All right. Instead, she's the friend you never had. She's the kind that encourages you and motivates you to rise above those dilemmas. And she takes you down memory lane where life pitted challenges against her and what she did to get through them. Look, this is a glimpse of her struggles, and all of these things are based on science. She's a scientist, ladies and gentlemen.
Science.
Yeah, exactly. She's a scientist, and she goes out. She's got health-based facts to back up what she says. It's an incredible read. It's a fantastic read. It reads like a conversation, not a boring one. Just a tremendous book. You can find it on all the .coms. You go over to barnesandnoble.com. You go to applebooks.com. You can go, you got to just, that's me. Yeah, there's me ticking away on the keyboard. I don't know if y'all can hear that. Can you hear that? So there you go.
I have to embellish it for you.
I appreciate it. But, you find it on all the .coms. You can't go into the store and order it, but you got to go on all the .coms and you can order it. So check it out. I Ate Cookies Out of the Trash by Tammy Pruitt. It's a fantastic read. And Alex, hey man, that's our show, bro.
Absolutely. We're knocking on the door of the combine. I can't wait.
Yeah, a couple days away, man. It's a pure excitement. It's pandemonium around here. We're all fired up for the NFL combine. We've got the beer will be flowing, and we're going to be eating some great grub out there. St. Joseph's Brewery, I hope you're ready for our invasion here. But that's going to be a thing. We're going to be out there in Indy.
Yep, just look for the guys in the green outside Blitz T-shirts.
Yes, sir. We're going to be jamming. I hope everybody's excited. The NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Come say hi. The Outside Blitz will be in the house again. So we will see you guys on Thursday. And for those of you out there in streaming land here, or for those of you listening to the show on all of your podcast networks, give us a rate, give us a review. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time right here on the Outside Blitz.
I bet you watch again. And with that, pow, we're gone.